Trump is promising to bring back thousands of jobs to America. During his historic address to Congress earlier this week, he touted his accomplishments in the first month alone.
Since my election, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, General Motors, Sprint, SoftBank, Lockheed, Intel, Walmart, and many others have announced that they will invest billions and billions of dollars in the United States and will create tens of thousands of new American jobs.
Joining us this morning is the former Best Buy CEO, Brad Anderson, with us right now. Brad, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Characterize what you're seeing out there. What did you think about the president's speech and in terms of job creation right now? How do you see it?
I love optimism. I love the positive consumer attitude that's out there. I mean, I think this whole game is about can we get discretionary income into the hands of more American consumers and get leverage into the hands of employees so they're making more money. And a lot of this is pretty optimistic. I mean, I think there's a good reason to believe that certainly we're seeing an enthusiastic amount of growth coming from companies now. And the climate looks like it's going to be easier for most companies. It makes more sense for them to take on risk and grow. Yeah, but so I'm pretty optimistic.
And certainly that's what it feels like out there, certainly when you look at the markets as well. Now, obviously, you're no longer the CEO of Best Buy, but the company reported a weak holiday quarter, and they also guided guidance was also weak. That's why the stock was down so much yesterday. It was a miss on fourth quarter revenue because of an unexpected drop in same-store sales. Can you give us a sense of your take on the retail environment right now? I mean, I'm talking the demand picture, and I recognize you have nothing to do with what just went on at Best Buy.
Yeah, the reason I can talk about it is I left the board this past summer, retired for this summer. But yeah, I would imagine the folks at Best Buy, though, probably have a different read over the last quarter because their sales were slightly below what the street estimates were, but the earnings were substantially above. I mean, they have really strong earnings picture. I think 28% for the year and even greater in the quarter earnings growth. I mean, I love what the strategic plan is for the company, and I think you're talking about a company that's gaining market share, returning a lot of cash to the shareholders, increasing its dividend. I think the company's in really strong position. And then I'm really excited about the future plan, which, you know, there's so many issues that are created by consumer electronics, and they've started a program in 4 different cities of solving it individual customer by individual customers. So I think they got a lot of opportunity in front of them. So I bet they were a little surprised at the street reaction to
Brad, it's Kevin Kelly.
Announcement.
Brad, it's Kevin Kelly. I'm so glad you're here because there's a lot of tailwinds, right? So seeing the corporate tax rate come down would be extremely huge for Best Buy because sometimes their net effective tax rate is 38%. They don't get the benefits and deductions that oil and gas companies have. But one of the biggest impediments I see, and I love to hear your take on this, is the border adjustment tax. You just were on here talking about getting discretionary income in the hands of consumers. Will the border adjustment tax be completely detrimental to those consumers and they won't be spending more at Best Buy and other retailers?
Well, the border adjustment tax is, you know, especially for Best Buy, because most of its products are imported, is something that if I was CEO of Best Buy, I would be very concerned about. But the other side of that is that as you start moving, if it's successful in terms of, first of all, most countries in the world do it. Secondarily, if it's successful in terms of beginning to move more of our jobs into the United States, because there's 2 sides. It's how much does something cost and how much money does your consumer have. So the other thing is the U.S. economy is such a powerhouse in the world that the companies have had to sort of adjust their pricing to this market because they so desperately need this market. And as it gets more vibrant and grows, they need it all the more. So I'm not sure that the full impact would get passed along to the consumer. And the stronger the consumer's individual financial situation is, the better for most retailers. So I think it's a very mixed picture in terms of what its impact is going to be.
Brad,
but
looking back at your history in corporate America, can you remember a time where so much of the optimism and so much of even the market's rally hinged on Congress and the president, and even to a certain extent, President Trump's presentation of himself. Charles Krauthammer last night on Special Report said President Trump, it was the way that he carried himself in that Tuesday night address that certainly helped with the optimism about what the next at least 4 years will look like.
No. I really can't think of a parallel to this. I think it's partially that there's so much pent-up desire to get optimistic because we've been so cautious for so long, and that's not a normal American trait. And so the president tapping in on it and doing it in a way in which, just pragmatically, I serve on a lot of boards. If you're talking about lower tax rates that stimulate your desire to take risks and grow, you know, that pushes optimism in kind of in a practical sense for most people and companies.
Yeah, but I think you're hitting on something about decorum, right? I mean,
yes.
when the way he was handling himself, that's why the next day everyone was saying it was presidential. People wanted to see that.
They wanted to see that, and I think that some of what, again, it's hard to quantify it, impossible to quantify it, if in fact, but how he carried himself. But Brad points out something that we've been saying for the last 8 years. The American people are optimistic by nature. Yeah. The American people want to work. Right. They want jobs. They want a better life. They don't want, they're not, their goal isn't the $15 minimum wage. Right. That's not the American spirit. And again, it takes a special leader to unleash that spirit, and that's exactly what Brad's talking about.
He showed leadership.
Yeah. He's not saying, I mean, everything in the speech is everything he said on the campaign.
Right.
He just said it in a different, more presidential way.
And it showed leadership.
He's focused on growth, right? Yep. I mean, that's the thing. And his cabinet's even saying it, growth, growth, growth. That's what he's focused on, and it's fiscal policies, not monetary policies. So that's why I think you're seeing a huge tailwind in the market, because of the fiscal policies will actually enact economic changes throughout the entire economy.